Together We Stand, Turning the Tide in the West, North Africa, 1942-3, by James Holland. Read by Tim Pigott-Smith. Sidi Rezegh, Libya, November 1941. A little after 5:30 a.m., Friday the 21st of November 1941. Reveille for the men of the 6th Royal Tank Regiment. Lance Corporal Sam Bradshaw was awake instantly. It was still dark and cold. Surrounding the camp were their tanks, 52 in all, forming a temporary steel barricade. The previous night, newly arrived enemy troops had opened fire with mortars and mobile 50mm anti-tank guns. It had caused pandemonium. An ammunition truck was hit and blew up, and in the confusion, one of their tanks had moved out of line and was hit by one of their own shells. Lieutenant Hancock and 2 of his crew had been killed. By 9:30 a.m., the regiment was withdrawing to the south. They had then spent the 20th of November patrolling the western edge of the airfield they'd captured the day before. Artillery duels had continued throughout the morning, but the major action was still to come. Sam had discovered what that would be at a briefing later that evening. As a tank commander, Sam was put in the picture, despite being only a trooper in the ranks. Their task was twofold. Firstly, they were to help the 2nd Rifle Brigade secure the enemy lines that ran along the ridge west to east to their north, all the way to the large white Bedouin tomb known as the Mosque. Having done that, they were to drive over the lines and drop down the other side of the ridge, a fairly steep slope of some 50 feet, into the valley and across the desert track known as the Trik Capuzzo towards Ed Duda. There they were to link up with the troops breaking out of the seaport of Tobruk, 20 miles to the northwest, which had been besieged for 240 days. It was now 6:15 a.m. on the morning of the 21st. Sam could see his breath in the day's first glimmer of light. He'd slept fully clothed, wearing his greatcoat. He kept it on now as he walked over to his tank. Like all the other tanks in the regiment, it was a Nuffield A-15 Crusader, speedy enough to deserve the name. But what advantage it had in speed, it lost in armament. The 2-pounder main gun and Bisa machine gun were adequate so long as they didn't come up against German Mark IV tanks with their 75mm gun, or the dreaded 88mm anti-aircraft gun, adopted to great effect by the Germans in an anti-tank capacity. Both had greater range and could fire larger shells with greater velocity than either the Crusader or any other British tank. In practical terms, this meant they could knock out a Crusader with ease at 2,000 yards, while the Crusader had to get within 600 to make any kind of impression. Sam's Crusader was in good mechanical order, despite the 90-mile march, a regimental record, 3 days before, and the action of the previous 2 days. On the 19th, the regiment had easily overwhelmed their first objective, the enemy landing ground of Sidi Rezegh. 3 aircraft had managed to get airborne, but 17 had been destroyed on the ground. The sound of engines shattered the early morning quiet as the tanks rumbled and clanked forward, to allow the 3-ton lorries, ambulances, and other soft-skinned vehicles that had leaguered within the camp enough room to move out. Their place was a mile or 2 back, well away from the front line. At the same time, machine gun fire tore into the sky as each crew tested their guns. A quiet stillness returned once more. Sam sat eating breakfast, bully beef and biscuit. It was now about 6:45 a.m. At 8:05 a.m., 7th Armoured Brigade HQ received word that considerable numbers of enemy tanks were concentrating to the southeast of their position. It was decided that the 7th Hussars Tank Regiment would stay behind to face them, while the 6th Royal Tanks, along with A Company of the 2nd Rifle Brigade and 1 battery of the Royal Horse Artillery, would press ahead as planned. Command for these northern operations was handed over to Brigadier Jock Campbell, already something of a legendary figure within the 8th Army. At 8:15 a.m., Sam and his crew began moving across the start line. Firing the main 2-pounder and Bisa machine gun repeatedly, They soon reached their initial objective.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?